And top of the morning to you. I'm Jeff Coleman.
And I'm Deborah Pinkerton. Welcome to Morning Light.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Yes, and same to you.
You're wearing green.
And so are you.
And you're 100% Irish, right?
25%, let's say.
Well, in just a minute, our Morning Light panel will tackle a challenging topic in our headlines of late.
But first, here is a preview of what's coming up later in the show. World Down Syndrome Day is recognized this Friday. This is a time to celebrate, raise awareness, and support individuals with Down syndrome. We will introduce you to Friendship Community, a faith-based organization that impacts the world for those living with disabilities. Plus, you will meet Josh, one of the artists at Friendship Community.
And I've been watching Josh go around the studio this morning. He is a bright light to wherever he goes.
Yeah, and what an artist.
Indeed, yeah. Well, data from the National Transportation Safety Board shows there were more than 1,400 aviation accidents last year. 257 of them were deadly. As of this date, the number of crashes stands at around 140. But before those numbers confuse you, think about this. There are some 45,000 commercial flights every single day in America. Most take off and land safely. The NTSB says more attention to crashes doesn't necessarily suggest flying is any less safe.
Well, I think it's when there's an accident, there are so many numbers, and the numbers are high. And I think that's what creates fear.
Well, and social media moves pictures and video pretty quickly.
That is right. Well, in the weeks following that deadly aircraft collision in Washington, D.C. in January, a new poll finds 65% of Americans are nervous about flying. But consider this, the NTSB says 43,000 people die in car crashes each year. So if flying is safer than driving or riding a bus, why are we still fearful?
I don't know, Deborah. I think we find ways to be fearful and find statistics, data to confirm our fears sometime. And remember those stranded astronauts on an 8-day mission to space, which has turned into 9 months? As politicians have debated who is to blame, Commander Butch Wilmore, a devout Christian, has notably resisted criticizing, reminding a watching world again and again that God is in control of his life and of this mission. So how can we here on Earth work through fear? Fear of flying across the state or even around the world, or even walking across the street to help a neighbor in need. How can we fight fear with faith? We're going to take this big question to the Morning Light panel this morning, and it's an all-Irish panel this morning. Yes, welcome. Glad to have you. Representative Scott Barger, good to have you back
here.
Thank
you, sir. Appreciate it.
What is your mix? Do you have a little Irish in you?
I think most Americans do, at least today. But no, I'm more Scottish than Irish.
Jamar, Thrasher? We don't know, do we?
Yeah, we don't know.
One day we'll know in heaven.
One day we'll know. Exactly.
Davis,
right.
Is there any Irish in you?
There is, quite a bit.
Okay, good. And you look very appropriately Irish today. So good to have you. So the big picture, the wide shot is there seem to be trends in media and especially social media where fears emerge. And it's hard to tell if the fear began with us or if it began with social media, and to what level does that media and that pressure impact what we think. So when it comes to flying, you see this downward trend of a lot of accidents maybe 10 or 15 years ago, and then that number steadily declining. But all of a sudden, because of some high-profile accidents, we are gripped with fear about flying. Davis, what is happening? You fly a lot.
Yeah, I do fly a lot. I think part of it is just we have to understand the world is so connected. So it used to be, go back before the internet, people would be exposed to their local newspaper. They would be exposed to their community, their friends and family. Now we hear about accidents. If there's a plane crash in Russia, we hear about it in 20 minutes. So I think that's just part of it. It's the exposure to all these things. And I think it can be overwhelming for any of us if we're not careful, because we're dealing with the world's problems, not just our families, our local communities. So I think that's part of how we're learning to engage our faith as we do that, because we are seeing the world's problems very rapidly.
How do you manage, Jamar, your fears when everybody's chattering, everybody's thinking, and then you almost have to speak to yourself and wrestle through fears? It could be a train derailment. It could be car accidents. It could be a series of fires. In this case, it's flying. How do you wrestle through that?
Well, for one, I struggle, just to be completely blunt and honest. And when the thing about...
You're not alone, by the way.
And I'm not alone, right? It's a huge community. But when you're reading something, we have to understand that media exacerbates an issue. And so when you're social media, the sharing and all, and it happens, it's true. But what I do to manage is I try to slow down. You know, Scripture says, "Be still." And peace be still. Like, that's where you get your peace. And sometimes, you know, prayer, a lot of times prayer, but trying to just meditate on the word, meditate and have God. And I think if you fly a lot, there's a lot of people, if you watch, like, they may be praying. That's right. And when you are in those serious moments of anxiety where it's a life or death situation, I think the common phrase is there's no atheist in a foxhole. Right. So, I mean, it's just going to God and not leaning on my own understanding.
So, Scott, when you're flying and you're managing, you've got, tell the audience how many children you have.
We have 9.
So you have 9 children.
Right.
And so thinking about all of them getting perhaps on a plane, or at least a good contingent of them, right. Each of them, little hearts, big hearts, different in how they respond to fear. How do you walk people through fear without just going to percentages and odds?
I think that there is this misconception, especially among people of faith, that faith is the feeling of faith is the absence of the feeling of fear. But that's not what it is. Faith is really doing things that you, living as though something is true, even though you may feel as though it isn't. And so, to me, there's a good bit, and on top of the discipline of being quiet, being still, kind of settling yourself, orienting your mind towards God. But there's also a discipline of living as though God is actually in control, even though you may feel inside that maybe He isn't. That's really what faith is. It's stepping one step in front of the other, not necessarily feeling as though everything is okay, because oftentimes we don't. And emotions can be erratic, and they can, fears can grip us suddenly. We see the wrong image on the internet, and suddenly we feel afraid, or whatever situations around us can make us feel afraid. Faith is living as though it is true when we say God is in control of this, even though we may feel that He isn't.
So if you're taking this, the model of that Scott's talking about, of applying, in Jamar, of applying your faith, working through fear, living side by side with it, take it then from flight to something as practical as getting to know a neighbor, right? Because it's the same root cause of you moved into a neighborhood, or some new neighbors have moved in, and by the time their 6th week is here, you have an entire profile built up of them, that they're drug dealers, or they're hiding something in their basement, or something is certainly illegal happening, and our fears, and then you meet the neighbor, and then you realize, oh my goodness, what was I doing? But this is happening all through our lives. How do you walk people through, in your own fears, suspicions of people, somebody coming close to your window at a stoplight?
I mean, I think we have to understand that God has a plan for our lives. So if we are trying to live and rest in our faith and know God has a plan, we could be afraid of being on this panel, afraid we say something foolish, embarrass ourselves or our family, but we know that we're together. I mean, God has put us all here together, and I think that's the way we need to live. And it's hard, it's not easy, it takes discipline, but that needs to be our focus. God has brought us to this moment for a reason, and sometimes that means tragedy is going to strike, sometimes it's going to be an opportunity for us to just share and care for others. But that's the kind of courage we should have in our faith. It's not easy. We're not always there. That's what we should be seeking, though.
So, Jamar, there are a lot of people on social media that say, well, good for you, nice religious people, Christians, so you have God. I have mantras, I have chants, I have a little thing that I hang around my neck, a little piece of a stone or a crystal or something. What is the difference for people looking on the outside in about what you're doing as a Christian and just finding, essentially, St. Paddy's Day, a good luck charm?
Well, I think one is what's true and what's not true. And I say that unequivocally, unapologetically. And, the Lord has called me to evangelize to men in particular who are seeking spiritual enlightenment, but that spiritual enlightenment does not include Jesus Christ, or has, and they, you know,
And you see a lot of that, right? I mean, young men are searching for, and they're wrestling with these fears, flying to getting married, to having children, and they're doing it alone.
And that's why wise counsel, you know, seeking wise counsel, and anyone can do that. And so God is so loving that even the people who do not believe, he still extends grace and love to. Like, that's a magnificent love.
So rewind that. I mean, because there are people saying, but I don't really get it. I don't really understand him. But you're saying that it is not a quid pro quo.
No, it's not. I mean, in fact, like, if it's not by any works that we do, it's by grace. And there's everyone lives under God's grace. People who wake up, people do, but it's wise counsel. Like, for example, what the viewers don't know is right before I'm like, hey, I didn't have any green on, you know, Rep here said, hey, but I was like, okay, does it look okay? But it's wise counsel, and I think that what people need to know is that there's a reason why this faith has been maintained for as long as it has been. And to be honest, I recently had to jump out and face a lot of fears, a lot of faith things. And here's the thing, I'll just disclose it right now publicly. I recently got married. I recently got married. I mean, and
which
so,
is like really a top fear for young men. Yeah.
Well, not a
congratulations.
Thank you, by the way.
Yeah.
But, you know, we're going to have it was a small, intimate ceremony. But for us, it's like, have that faith, walk out. And faith, by the way, is one of the things that people who are Christians, they don't have the benefit and the privilege to walk in that faith. So they're saved, they go to church, they do all of this. But faith is, like you said, Representative, you see it, you don't know how it's going to go, but you walk through that fear. You're still going to be angry. Scared. You're going to be Peter, but step out and look at Jesus, and Jesus is with you. That's the thing.
Scott, close us down here. Someone today wrestling with all kinds of fears, some of them logical, most of it not. But most of our fears at the root are not knowing and seeing into the future. Take 30 seconds.
I would say this, be with people. Be with people. Oftentimes, the presence of God in my life has been felt most clearly in the presence of other people that he's working with. And remember that you can also be a encouraging, uplifting presence in the life of somebody else. When I'm facing a fear, whether it's irrational or not, oftentimes I find courage in encouraging other people. Be with other people.
Stay in community, talk to each other. And so thank you for this. This was very helpful today. And thank you, Jamar. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, we all know children are a gift from God. Friday is World Down Syndrome Day. A Pennsylvania nonprofit is helping people with intellectual disabilities show God's unconditional love through their artistic abilities. You're watching Morning Light on Lighthouse TV.
Each year, World Down Syndrome Day is recognized on March 21st. The date being the 21st day of the third month was chosen to represent the triplication of the 21st chromosome, which causes Down syndrome. The goal of the day is to help people understand and support those living with Down syndrome. People with Down syndrome and their families need support to live and be included in their community, just like everyone else. A Pennsylvania faith-based program is doing just that. Joining me is Milt Stoltsfus, who serves as chaplain with Friendship Community. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for inviting us, Deborah.
Tell us, what is Friendship Community?
Friendship Community is a Christian ministry. We started in 1972. We're based out of Lidditz in Lancaster County. And our mission is to provide services for individuals with intellectual disabilities and autism. We do that by providing residential services. We have 24 group homes in the Lancaster and Lebanon area. We also have Friendship Heart Gallery, which is one of our day programs, and you'll meet one of our artists in a little bit. We also do some different social and recreational activities, totally serving about 200 people through our services.
Oh my goodness. Now you're the chaplain, so tell us about what your role is and what you do.
I have a very unique role, and I'm very blessed to be able to interact with all of the individuals we serve, and in one sense to represent Jesus to them. As a Christian ministry, we find it important to let our folks know that we serve that they are valued, they are loved by God, and they are surrounded by people who care for them. So personally, I'm able to visit with our individuals, to be with them when they're going through health issues or grief, to lead different Bible studies and worship services, to do different activities with them, and just basically to show the love of God to them.
And how do you minister to them?
Well, there are many different ways. I will meet individually with a number of folks throughout the month, gather together in different large groups, but most of all, I find being the presence of a friend and bring peace into their lives. Sometimes lives for our individuals, even with disabilities, they bleed like we do, they grieve like we do, they have illness like we do, they have joys and successes and sorrows just like we do. So being a person who can just walk alongside of them is very important to me.
And what type of reaction do you receive from the people there?
It is really neat to watch our individuals grow in faith, but also to see them react to just a word of encouragement. I've been told that I've walked into a room of somebody who's been really having a tough time, and when they see me, hopefully they're sensing that presence of peace, but it changes their outlook, or it changes how they react. And so I think that when we bring Christ into people's lives, there is going to be a difference, whether you have a disability or not. So for us, the calling is to be that presence of God, that presence of Jesus, and to just share God's love.
And when we say we want people to feel like they're living just like everyone else, what is the biggest misconception, would you say, that people have about people who have Down syndrome?
Well, first, there's a lot of fear, as we've been talking about this morning, of how do I interact with a person who is different than me, who looks different than me, maybe who is not able to talk. For folks with Down syndrome, you'll find a variety of responses of diagnosis. Some are verbal, some are not. Some have more physical struggles, others do not. And so we don't know how to respond immediately when we meet somebody because we may be uncomfortable. That's probably the number one thing, is people's comfort level around someone with a disability. How do I respond to somebody who can't speak back to me? How do I respond to somebody who's using a wheelchair? And our message to them, anyone who's struggling with that, is just look beyond the disability and see the person. Say hi, look at them and find ways that you can interact, find joy, find the things that bring them together with us.
Okay, great. Milt, I want you to stay with us. We do need to take a break, but we're going to be talking with you in our next segment.
Thank you.
And coming up next on Morning Light, Friendship Community allows those living with intellectual disabilities to show off their God-given talents. You will meet one of their artists, Josh Doughty, when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are looking ahead to World Down Syndrome Day. Back with us is Milt Stoltsfus, chaplain with Friendship Community, and Josh Doughty. Thank you for being with us, Josh, this morning. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? How old are you? Where do you live?
I'm 33 years old, and I live in Leola with my family.
Wow. How are you involved with Friendship Community?
I attend art class and go to activity night.
And we were talking earlier, and you're pretty involved with the activity night. Why don't you tell us about what you do?
We do some minute-to-win-it games, and we do hot potato, and sing the song for talent night.
Oh.
And we also play bingo.
Fun. Tell me, what is your favorite song?
My favorite song is called You Say by Lauren Daigle, which is my birthday twin.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's nice. Yeah, she is certainly a wonderful Christian artist. Milt, talk to us about Josh and how he has grown through the program.
Josh has been with us for a number of years, and the thing I enjoy about Josh is his personality, his willingness to talk to people. He's no stranger to anyone. He will be a friend to you once you get to know him. On the way here this morning, he was asked why he's with me today, and then I told him he was chosen, and that really resonated. And so Josh knows that he's been chosen by God, and Josh just brings goodwill to lots of people. He's a great artist. He's involved in our art program and is just a good representative of what we do at Friendship.
Yeah, and talking about what God has done with you, why don't you tell us about your artwork? This is amazing. You are so talented.
I started to, I did it.
Well, you have this beautiful piece here that you painted.
Yep.
And we were talking about this right here. This is a gift that you made for
my mom.
Oh, that is so very special. And the pottery?
Yep. I made the pottery, and I glazed it into different colors.
Wow. And it's for sale, too.
Yes.
I know. I'm going to have to show it to Jeff. He may be interested in something like that. So also, tell me about you being an author. I love the book, Josh's Journey with Family, Friends, and God. What is your book about?
It's about my life growing up in Pennsylvania, things I did with Friendship, and trips I took with Friendship, and with my mentor, who I used to have. His name's Dave.
And you're thinking about writing another book.
Yes.
And tell us, Milt, what do you think about this?
I love Josh. In our conversation in the car this morning, I would be giggling and chuckling at some of the things he was saying. He said, "Do you think I'm funny?" I said, "No, I'm not laughing at you, Josh. I'm laughing at you because you bring me joy." And Josh is a gifted artist working in one of our art studios at Friendship Community for several years now. And he just brings a sensitivity to the people around him. He's very sensitive to how people are feeling. And yeah, we talked about how it's good to be kind and respectful to people, and he does that well.
And Josh, we were talking earlier, and you had said, I wanted to do this because your mother said, be sure to ask this. Do you ever feel alone?
I'm never alone because Jesus is always with me.
Oh, that is wonderful. And you feel that way. I was going to say, you have an art gallery coming up or an art auction. Why don't you tell us about that?
Next Thursday?
Next Thursday, we have an art auction for Friendship that allows me to take part because I think Friendship has a great impact in my life for about over 10.5 years.
So you've donated one of your pieces of art to be sold at the auction gala.
Yes.
And you'll be there?
I
think so. I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when is it taking place?
Next Thursday on the 28th, 27th.
And you said it's already...
It's sold out. But I would encourage people to visit friendshipart.net and go online and see a number of our different artists and the things that they have for sale that they've produced.
Okay, great. Thank you both for being with us. And Josh, you're doing an amazing job.
Thank you.
And for more information about Friendship Community, and you can check out some of Josh's artwork, check out friendshipcommunity.net. Stay with us. We're back right after the break. Welcome back. Coming up tomorrow on Morning Light, Community Aid is so much more than a thrift store. The nonprofit is inspiring change in so many communities. I will talk with the CEO about how change can begin with you. And that's a look at what's coming up tomorrow on Morning Light. Now, Jeff, your closing thoughts, and hey, you have to check out Josh's artwork. Look at this. I absolutely love this scarf. It matches.
He is really gifted.
He is
look,
really
I think
gifted.
what Milt said, when we're looking at Down syndrome, there's the immediate fear, but faith really overcomes that fear, and then you can see the beauty of the gift of someone like Josh. I mean, what an extraordinary story.
Yeah, make a difference in someone's life today.
Indeed. Well, thank you, Deborah. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Well, I know what it's like to be afraid of speaking in front of an audience. I guess I was 5 when I had to do it all by myself for the very first time, reciting a long passage of Scripture in a big convention hall. But in between that first time standing up in front of all those faces, eyes on me, I learned something. If I rely on myself and think about the many ways it could all go wrong, and there are many ways, as Jamar said in the panel, that our minds and our mouths can trip us up. From tripping over my shoelaces or mispronouncing a word, I'll get swallowed up by fear. Fear that stays, and maybe you felt this, deep in my chest. I learned in those moments not to trust myself or the hours of practice or even notes in the pocket, but instead to trust the one who brought me to that moment. On this St. Patrick's Day, how about this reminder from the man himself, from St. Patrick? He said, "For daily I expect to be murdered or betrayed or reduced to slavery if the occasion arises, but I fear nothing because of the promises of heaven, for I cast myself into the hands of Almighty God." Fight fear with faith. It's the only way to slay the giants. For Deborah and the entire Morning Light team, I'm Jeff Coleman. Thanks for watching. Go check on your neighbors, and God willing, we'll see you again tomorrow morning.